This is one of my favorite secrets because it's so powerful and it's very important. It's the secret of writing like you talk. We're back to Mark here. He basically created this secret, and the premise is this: to establish intimacy and a one-on-one tone that resonates with the prospect, you have to use informal conversational copy, as if you're sitting and talking to a friend. You have to use spoken English. It doesn't have to be that perfect grammar that you learned in school. As a matter of fact, that often doesn't work. You want to talk like you're talking to a friend. So forget about being grammatically correct. Forget about pauses and one-word sentences. That all can work and be very powerful. So we're going to talk about that now. Jeff Lurie, who's another amazing copywriter, has this to say about writing like you talk. You have to convince the reader that you're one of them. You have to become your prospect and speak like you really understand him. So keep that in mind. A lot of copy uses jargon or talks over the prospect or thumps our chest. We've been doing this for 30 years. That doesn't resonate. You have to speak like you're having a friendly conversation with the reader. So here's a weak example of a corporate website that is selling HVAC services. This really, I don't know what kind of language I would call this, but it's not writing like you talk. It's just a list of things, really. It's closed crawl spaces, air duct cleaning, attic insulation, mold remediation, air filtration, lifetime warranties, no toxic mold, no condensation. We provide building inspections and easy to understand pictorial reports. Okay, that's not very much writing like you talk. Your findings will be prioritized by air quality hazards and energy loss issues. I'm just like, that is not talking like you would talk to a human being that you're sitting in a room with, right? So let's look at a better example. This is much stronger. With the 2,800 gallons of air that you breathe each day, make sure that it's clean air. That's a nice sentence, right? Your home is your sanctuary, the place that you spend the majority of your time throughout each week. The indoor air should be healthy and good for you to breathe. However, studies have shown that the indoor air quality is 5 times more polluted than outdoor air. Yikes. It's not ideal for any family to be breathing in air that could be harmful. You need protection from potential pollution, and your HVAC system is the greatest asset to maintaining better air quality in your home. So that's speaking more conversationally, as if I was in the room with an HVAC person and they were saying, did you know that in your home, the air quality can be 5 times more polluted than outdoors? I'd be like, what? I need to fix this now. So good stuff. To write like you talk, there are little tools and techniques you can use to make your copy stronger and more conversational. So punctuation gets involved. You want to have the proper voice in your tone. You want to use short sentences, and you can use a tool called Flesch-Kincaid scoring, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So first, let's talk about punctuation. When you're writing, you can actually use punctuation to raise your voice or create a pace or emphasize important points. So we do that through bolds, italics, and caps, through pausing with ... Or you can use a long dash to set an important point apart, or you can skip a line. There are all kinds of things. This example here, I'm just showing you generally some ways that she has underlined certain things, put ... to pause or lead them into the bullets, or not the bullets, but the 3 important points she's making. And then bold. This is a way of using it to create a different type of voice here. So punctuation can be your friend, and copy treatment too, and color and things like that. Here's an example of punctuation power. Let's get close and read this together. Dear friend, I'm doing everything I can to get you an $800 annual increase in your Social Security benefits, but I need your help. Then we have a break and an underline. Here's what's going on. A bill called the Social Security Expansion Act has been introduced in Congress, and it will do several very good things. Most importantly, which leads into the 3 points, increase your Social Security payments by about $800 per year, improve your annual cost of living adjustment, COLA, and then guarantee your benefits for as long as you need them. So you can see how punctuation can make a difference here versus if this was just one big old block of copy. Now, voice is really important too, because the way you talk to your prospects about your product or service is tied directly to, so you wouldn't necessarily want to be screaming at your prospect the way sometimes TV commercials can be. You would want to be writing the correct tone of voice for your product or prospect. And it's not necessarily what's right for another product. So your own natural voice, the way you talk to persuade someone, comes into play, but it also has to be looked at as appropriate for the brand. In this example here, this is a financial service, and their target is someone who is very much a skeptic or a cynic or worried about the government. So their tone is protect your privacy from Big Brother's eyes, right? Big Brother's prying eyes. And, you're being watched. The eavesdropping is escalating. You need to protect yourself. So they really hit home that kind of cynic, skeptic, paranoid prospect in a great way. You wouldn't want to use that for a different type of product because it wouldn't be appropriate. So let's look at something like Etsy. They wouldn't use that kind of tone. Their tone is more like, millions of shoppers can't wait to see what you have in store. So it's much softer and friendlier and bright than the other kind of protect your privacy, Big Brother's watching. So that's how you get a feel for voice being appropriate for your product or service. Here are 3 ways to give your copy the proper voice from our friend Paul Hollingshead. Imagine the person you're writing to and picture him or her as a friend. Believe that the product you're selling will truly improve your friend's life. Figure out what it would take to convince you to buy the product. So think about that. Why would I want to buy it? That's where you start. Short sentences and bullets are easier to scan, easier to digest, and they move the reader along in a quick way. If somebody has to stop or reread a sentence because it wasn't quite clear or it keeps running on, you might have lost them. So keep it short, conversational, clippy, nice and quick. This is an example here where it's a B2B site for commercial dumpsters. And the copy's very short. Dumpster rental, simplified. Order online or call. We've made it easy. Everything is short, punchy, and easy to digest. Now here's a tip related to bullets. If you're putting bullets in, which you should be to break up the copy, Bob Bly is awesome at writing the most incredible bullets. Like every bullet is almost a whole sales promotion in itself. He puts the benefit first. So that's a good tip for you. Here he has virtually 100% profit margin, and then he explains how that is so. No printing costs, no big cash outlay. He explains that again. No inventory to store. With ebooks, you're not storing printed books. So start with a benefit and then explain. Much more powerful that way. Now here's something cool that you have in your Word documents called the Flesch-Kincaid score, or the FK score. And what this does is it's a tool to measure reading ease, which we've been talking about. Conversational, short sentences, punchy, all that good stuff. And the choice of words. You don't want to use overly, you don't want to use $12 words when a $3 word will work. So this tool will help you measure that. It also looks at sentence length, number of syllables in words, right, and other data. It rates the entire piece as a whole while looking at the elements. And then the lower the score, it's been proven, the more believable your copy will be. Go figure. So there's this really cool tool, and basically in copywriting, to score well, you want to try and be under a 5.0, which is very easy. It used to be correlated exactly to a education grade level. So a 5-point would be a 5th grader and a 10-point would be a 10th grader. But I don't know if they're as matchy-matchy anymore about that. These are their degrees of 1 through 10. You don't want to be too verbose or too hard to understand. So if you have, newspapers strive for 5 to 10. That's what they strive for. But they also know that readers of newspapers might be one type of reader where someone you're trying to reach for just a simple product, you want to make it clear and quick, you want to keep it under 8. That's what copywriting pretty much across the board strives for. Now, just for fun, we decided to show you the FK scores of some popular books that are timeless. And it's kind of interesting to see that they're all well under 8. So Of Mice and Men, 3.4. Gone with the Wind is 7.0. This is the entire book, mind you, so it's not just the title. But To Kill a Mockingbird, 5.9. For Whom the Bell Tolls, 3.1. Lord of the Flies, 4.5. 1984, 6.1. And The Road, which is a recent Pulitzer Prize winner, 3.4. Now, when you consider entire books are given these scores, the lower the score, the more likely more readers can embrace it and understand it. So that's a fun guide right there. Here are some tips to lower your FK scores. And you're going to read along this with me. It's pretty fun. So instead of, it is absolutely essential that the interior wall surface of the conduit be maintained in a wet condition, and that means be provided for wetting continually the peripheral interior wall surface during operation of the device in order to avoid accumulation of particulate matter about the interior surface area. Okay, that's a 12. We don't want that. Instead, won't this make your readers and you happier if it said something like this? To avoid solids buildup, make sure you keep the interior wall wet. 6.7. And probably interior is pushing it above that, So try to do that in everything you're writing. Nobody wants to read the first one. Even if they're intelligent and use all those words, it's still just boring and wordy. So make sure you do an FK score on your copy because it can make it much nicer, or you can work harder to make it short and punchy. Here's some more examples. High insulin levels can kill you. Proof: 3 decades of rigorous scientific research. This research proves that consistently high insulin levels are closely linked to obesity, diabetes, heart disease, even cancer. That's an 8. And some of the reasons it's as high as 8 is because insulin is not an everyday word for a lot of people, or the scoring system. So there you go. More tips to lower your FK score. This is a really hilarious, I love this. David Meerman Scott is brilliant. He came up with the Gobbledygook Manifesto, and he talked about getting all the corporate jargon and gobbledygook and meaningless phrases out of your copy. And it was a mission of his. And he, at one point, had the gobbledygook generator online where you could put in a section of copy and get a score on how much awful copy there was in it, and wording and corporate speak. So keep it simple, avoid jargon. There is one thing I'm going to say about jargon, though, is if you're in B2B, or if you're selling a product to a specific fan base that's knowledgeable and uses jargon, like if you're talking about Citrix, online, cloud, blah, 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 you would use phrases that that audience uses because you're writing like you talk and you're writing that you know them. So in general, always try to avoid jargon and other gobbledygook in your copy. Again, check the score on your drafts. I've just showed you how to do that. Every time you write copy now, you can run that old Flesch Kincaid scoring to see how well you're doing. Now that we've covered write like you talk, let's see how to write with passion.